Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your NXT Takeover Chicago 2018 preview and predictions. As per usual on Takeover, you know the drill. We've got 5 matches set up for this card. We've got 3 titles being defended, a grudge match, and another match that I am thinking might even be the best match on the show, but you're not going to know who we're predicting until we get to each match individually. So, John, let me know what you think about the TakeOver Chicago 2018 card.
Oh, my brother, the sweet, sweet release of preview and predictions. All the opinions, all the hyperbole, all the conjecture, all the fantasy booking. It spills out here. I love when we do these. I'm already amped up. We're not even in this one yet. I'm thinking about this one. I'm thinking about Money in the Bank tomorrow. We're going live at 9 with that one. I mean, dude, crazy pay-per-view card this weekend. As far as TakeOver Chicago 2, I got to be like, I'm hyped for it because it's NXT, and NXT is a proven commodity, right? So even on paper, a lesser-looking card, I think it inspires some goodwill from the audience because of how many times they've proven themselves before. So taking that into account, I'm going to give my hype for TakeOver Chicago 2, I think a very modest 7.5 out of 10.
That's the exact number that I was going to apply to it, so that's perfect.
Yeah, and I got to say, dude, for me, that 7.5 is really being driven, I'd say, by 2 matches. Really, 2 matches in particular are really driving that. The other matches, while not bad, and while I'm not going to come in ranting and raving like I'm kind of expecting I'll do at Money in the Bank tomorrow. You know, like I'm just really looking forward to dissecting this with you. And there are 2 matches on this card where I'm like, yeah, this is gonna freaking own and be great and really be very interesting to see how they go about it. So yeah, man, I'm ready to get into this when you are.
Absolutely. I don't know if you have the video pulled up so that you can see the card. If you want to pull it up, you can see the card. Usually I like to be able to go in order from matches with the fewest stakes to matches that have high stakes but aren't for titles to matches for championships. But on this card, the 2 non-world title championship matches really do feel like the least important matches on the show. So I do have those listed as matches 1 and 2 in the description in the match order. And I don't necessarily think that's going to reflect the order of the matches when the pay-per-view actually happens. This is just me making an effort for us to go through these matches in order from least to most important. And I got to tell you, man, Shayna Baszler versus Nikki Cross definitely, at least to me, feels like the least important match on this show. So if you have another match that you would rather talk about first, that's fine. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the one we should get through first.
Brother, you're the captain of the ship. If that's what you want to do first, I'm totally game with that. Shayna Baszler, Nikki Cross. You know what, man? Since you made the decision, you go first. What are you thinking about this match? How have you liked the build, et cetera, et cetera? You know the deal.
There are 3 title matches on this show, and for 2 of the title matches, I don't really think that the challengers are going to win the titles, but if they would, it wouldn't surprise me, and I wouldn't necessarily be angry about it. This is the only championship match where I don't expect the challenger to win the title, and if she would, I would be legitimately pissed about it.
Right.
Because I don't dislike Nikki Cross as a performer. We've been over that multiple times, but she should not be a champion on NXT. Really, I would argue that this iteration of Nikki Cross, this gimmick, should not be a champion at all, period, in WWE until some kind of character development happens beyond just, kind of weird, kind of crazy, whatever. So to me, Shayna needs to be the strong heel here. She needs to retain. I don't expect her to win in a dominant fashion the way I would probably prefer for her to win, but I do officially want to pick Shayna Baszler to retain, and I do just want it to be known that if I'm wrong about this, I won't be wrong, or I won't be mad because of being wrong. I'll be mad because it was just a shitty decision.
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings on this match, to be honest, because, like, again, I look at what the Nikki character is emblematic of, and I think that's such a great exactly, in a word, yeah. And I think that's such a great foil to the Shayna Baszler character, you know, this disciplined, malicious grappler. And I think it's a great contrast. I've already said my criticisms of the Nikki Cross character. Anybody new or old to the TwitWow brand, you can go back, you can listen to our NXT reviews, because Nikki Cross has been in NXT for a while now, so you're bound to strike gold on the rants. But essentially, you know, to give bullet points, I do think it's an over-the-top gimmick. I do think she hams it up way too much. I think they could tell an interesting story with this match, because I think Shayna, up until this point in her reign, has been so used to being the bully. But, like, how do you bully somebody that enjoys what you're giving them? Like, I could see where, like, maybe she tries to break the arm of Nikki and it's even like a limp noodle, and either Nikki gets up and maybe she's really aggressive, like, come on, Shayna, and like firing up, or maybe because she is over the top, she can smile about it, almost seem to like play with her limp arm, like moving it around and just kind of laughing in Shayna's face. Either way, it's an interesting dynamic. So I do think, as far as like the match itself goes, it could be promising from a narrative perspective and in ring, because we both said Nikki Cross's quality in ring. However, I wholly agree with you. 10,000%. A title change should not happen here. I agree with a lot of people that seem to project that the next feud for Shayna Baszler will be Kairi Sane. And I don't just think that's my bias. I think those two just have so much history, being in the finals of the NYC. You know, Shayna debuts on NXT, choking Kairi out. You know, like, they've built kind of a rivalry. It would make sense to retread that ground. So I'm going to go with Shayna Baszler to retain. And if we're wrong on this, really, not only does it anger me the way it angers you, but it utterly confounds me, because where do you even go with the division from here? So Shayna Baszler to retain.
Yeah. I'm definitely thinking this. And you know what? I almost feel like we did jump the gun a little bit, because I actually wanted to talk to you, because I don't know if we've even said this during our takeover or our NXT reviews. As soon as we saw the full card for this takeover get released, what did I say to you, John, about this takeover?
Well, didn't we agree that it's kind of just like a bridge to Brooklyn 4? Yeah,
exactly. This pay-per-view feels like it is basically designed to be a B tier takeover. It feels like they intentionally made this pay-per-view feel kind of weak, so that they could use it as a launching point, so that they could make Brooklyn as strong as possible in August. So really every single one of the challengers for a title on this show feel like they were kind of pigeonholed into this spot. Like, it felt forced. It felt unnatural. It didn't feel like the logical choice. It felt like it was kind of forced upon us. And that, like I said, that applies to all three challengers. Nikki Cross challenging for the women's title was very last minute, literally only really happened like 2 weeks ago. Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch probably had the most organic build, but that's still a build that has only happened over the course of the last month and a half. And then Aleister Black and Lars Sullivan. Lars Sullivan literally just showed up and he was like, I'm challenging you. That's really all it was. There's nothing personal there. There's no real like long-heated rivalry or anything like that. It's just a one and done kind of, hey, I want your title, and we're going to have the match. So the reason that I point that, and honestly, to go even further, we're not even going to get Mauro Ranallo on this show. He's being replaced on this show by some guy whose name I don't even know, that commentates 205 Live, Vic Joseph, I think.
Oh, I think I've heard him, because, you know, I've had 205 Live playing in the background like the past 2 weeks when we've played Rocket League, like on a 205 Live
he's
night.
Very bland.
He's bland. He's not bad. I would put him slightly above Percy Watson. But yeah, like a fan even said, and Mauro explicitly commented, like, the show isn't about me, it's about the performers. But dude, like, you really get what a commentator's supposed to do, and he does it so well. It's definitely a detraction.
Yeah, sure. Well, see, that's the thing. Like, I feel like Mauro improves the show. Vic Joseph probably won't. He definitely won't improve it. He probably won't be like a major detriment to the show or anything. Like, he's no GM. He's not. Right. He's not going to make me want to like mute my television or anything. So he's more of like a neutral. You know, I would say he's basically like the poor man's Tom Phillips, because I love Tom Phillips, because Tom Phillips blends into the background, tells the stories that need to be told, and occasionally we'll get like a nice quip or a nice one-liner in on like a Corey Graves or a Byron Saxton. So I like Tom Phillips. I like that type of commentator, but Vic Joseph is basically just a more bland version of him.
Right.
So if you didn't already kind of feel like this was meant to be like a B show, like a bridge pay-per-view, the fact that Morrow's not even going to be on it, and the fact that he is being replaced by 205 Live's play-by-play guy tells you all you need to know. So again, this does feel like a bridge pay-per-view, and that really makes me want to just pick all the titles to be successfully retained and no really big storyline developments happen. But this is NXT, and it feels like every single takeover has some kind of surprise on it. Even last takeover, where the winners weren't at all surprises, we still had the surprise of Roderick Strong turning on Pete Dunne to join the Undisputed Era. So every takeover has some kind of surprise on it, and that's where I get to this next match, because I think that this NXT takeover's surprise is going to be Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch winning the tag titles off of the Undisputed Era.
And you know what? I had a feeling that this was going to be the match where you picked the title change, and I only say that because you even teased to me last night, like, you know, John, brace yourself. I think I'm going to go with a title change on preview and predictions. Here's why, because normally, I feel like I'm learning, because we've done this now together so many years, TwitWow. Here's why I'm not going to do the usual, oh, Ashton, no, that's not possible. Because, if anything, I could really see Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch, if the trigger was to be pulled, being paper champions. Like transitional champions, I could see a future episode of NXT TV 2 or 3 weeks from now, Undisputed Era gets the titles right back. I do not see these guys being champions.
I don't think that they would put the titles right back on the Undisputed Era. I think that they would basically use that as an excuse to call the Undisputed Era up and put the titles probably at Brooklyn on either the Mighty or War Raiders.
See, so, well, let me ask you this, Ashton. I don't think this has any bearing on your prediction, but I'm just curious to get into your mind. Would you consider next week War Raiders versus the Mighty to be kind of like a de facto #1 contenders match?
I definitely think that that's fair to say, yes.
Okay. See, this is where I'm conflicted, because you can't call those guys up yet until Adam Cole would lose the North American Championship as well. And I know he's defending it on the big UK show, but I forget who he's defending it against. I think that was an opponent to be determined, right? So
yes, that is true, yeah.
I don't know, because see, I get where you're coming from about the surprise stuff, and I don't want to write these guys off, because that's the thing. I think NXT expects all of us to write these guys off, because I like the team, but I was even explaining to you in our NXT review just last night. It just feels a bit sudden that they're in this spot. So now you kind of explaining your logic, it's left me a bit conflicted, but that's another running joke, though, with TwitWow preview predictions. Like, no, John, don't leave the boat. Stay on the boat. So I think I'm going to go Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong to retain. But if they lose, I would like to put an asterisk. If you're correct, I do stand by that. I do think these guys would be transitional champions. They wouldn't even make Brooklyn 4, because I still personally believe the Brooklyn 4 plans are O'Reilly and Strong versus War Raiders for the tag titles. So, and that would also imply.
No, you think that they would be such transitional champions that they would have their moment here, they would win the titles, it would be this big celebration, but then they would lose the titles right back to O'Reilly and Strong between this show and Brooklyn 4.
Absolutely. I could see an episode of NXT TV being main evented by a tag title rematch and Undisputed Era get the title.
Have we ever had 2-time NXT tag team champions before?
The Revival, right? Because they were.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They beat the Vaudevillains the first time, and then American Alpha for the second.
Yeah. And then Alpha was the second one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So they wouldn't be the first. So that's okay. But yeah, I'd be fine with that. I just feel like like something has to happen that we're not expecting. Nothing else makes any sense. And now, granted, the whole point of something not being expected is that maybe you don't think it makes sense going into it, but they can write their way out of it. And that's fine with me. Like, we didn't expect Roderick Strong turning on Pete Dunne going into that show, but and really, if you actually go back and watch the match, it makes no fucking sense, because he was helping Dunne the entire time.
Yeah.
Then just randomly at the end, he decides to turn on him. It made no sense. But it was
like, wait a minute, screw this. I don't know.
So normally the stuff that we're not expecting it's that for a reason. It's not something that I would have been able to predict, and that might happen again this time. Like we might get, this goes through without any kind of a hitch. O'Reilly and Strong retain, no problems. Lorcan and Burch go back to the back of the line, And then maybe like something crazy happens in Ricochet versus Velveteen Dream that I wasn't expecting, that I never would have guessed would have happened because it wasn't even hinted at. That's entirely possible, but just for the sake of keeping it fresh, I am going to predict a title change here, Lorcan and Burch to win. Really, it's mostly just because I feel like the Undisputed Era are above titles in NXT. Like, they really do feel like a main roster act, just kind of, lowballing it in NXT.
Yeah, I would agree. And like, the only reason I'm cool with them being in NXT is like, they really do get to own the spotlight. Yeah. Whereas maybe they could own the spotlight on SmackDown. Raw, I don't see any fucking chance. Like, and this isn't even me trying to get a rise out of it because, like,
no, dude, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They're great, but on Raw, I wouldn't trust the writing to even keep them relevant.
And see, that's what terrifies me about WWE. And you could apply this to more NXTX, but I don't want to make this like its own separate commentary. This is preview predictions, so I'll just say that is what terrifies me about the main roster. Is I don't think they know just how good they have it with the Undisputed Era. Like, these are guys to me that, again, relevant to our situation in 2018, could really make compelling television akin to what the NWO used to do when they were like the big fucking thing, or even Bullet Club when they were really hot. I think Undisputed Era is on that level, honestly, but I don't think the writing is on that level for them. And that's the tragedy here. So, yeah, you might as well keep them here where the writing is at least somewhat decent and meets their talent level. That said, so you're going with the title change, right? Just to put a bow on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're going with the title change. I'm tentatively, because I am thinking about how they use NXT television. But I am tentatively going to go with the champions retaining. But you definitely have me questioning myself because, again, like, I do feel like what I propose to you could be a nice middle-of-the-road compromise. But I think you and I are just going to go absolutes. You think that they're going to retain and most likely meet the Mighty at Brooklyn 4. I think Undisputed Era are going to retain. They're going to meet the War Raiders at Brooklyn 4, which also means that I guess we're kind of picking different camps for the Mighty versus War Raiders next week. Because I see the War Raiders winning that, and I'm guessing for like the whole number one contendership thing to work out, the Mighty would have to win. So
I don't know. I really don't even necessarily think that Lorcan and Burch versus the War Raiders is unlikely. Like, I could see that happening. If Lorcan and Burch win the titles, I see no reason as to why the War Raiders can't challenge them. Like, it's not like, the thing is, like, War Raiders get a positive reception, but they haven't been clearly defined as faces. Like, they're not good guys. They're just kind of badass, rebellious kind of guys.
Right.
So I could definitely see them being the ones to, like, because they really have been just plowing through everyone. So they could really kind of get that build where it's like they're just the best team in NXT and no one can stop them and they just plow through everyone. And maybe we get like the elusive squash title match at a pay-per-view where they just dominate Lorcan and Burch for 2 or 3 minutes and get the win in less than 5. Like that's what I'm talking about though. Like I just am trying to come up with stuff that we haven't necessarily seen in a while or at all before, and that's kind of where I landed. So we'll see.
Fair enough. Let's move on.
All right. So then we have 2 non-title matches. I wanted to make sure to save the world title match for last because I also wanted to talk about the fact that there are a lot of people saying, "Oh, we don't know if the world title is even going to main event at this show and all that stuff," but what they're overlooking is that the only reason that Almas Black didn't main event Takeover New Orleans is because of the fact that Gargano Ciampa was unsanctioned. They literally made it seem like the show was over. Takeovers usually last 2 hours and 15 minutes, give or take 10 minutes. And when Black Almas ended on Takeover New Orleans, it was like 10:15-ish. So basically, they had a 4-match takeover card, and then after the normal takeover was over, that was when they put on the unsanctioned fight. So it was really well done by them, but unfortunately, people are misinterpreting it as, oh, Gargano Ciampa are main evented that show, so they're just going to main event every show that they have a match on, and the world title is going to be semi-main. But I don't buy that. I think the world title is going to main event the show because Gargano Ciampa is an official match on this show. It's not unsanctioned. So I think they are probably going to semi-main. But because we're already talking about what's main eventing and what's semi-main eventing, the only match that's left that I don't think has a chance to be the main or semi-main event is Ricochet versus Velveteen Dream. So let's talk about that.
You go first, man, because I'm going to gush over this match, so I want you to get your thoughts first.
The build to this match has been awesome. We didn't get any really build on it whatsoever this week on NXT, and I'm okay with that because they really did an exceptional job building prior to this. I would say that Velveteen Dream has put in the work, but Ricochet has done a great job of just kind of playing off of Dream and making Dream look legit. And I think Ricochet will continue to do that in this match. And in doing so, I think Dream's going to win this, and I think Dream's going to challenge for the world title at TakeOver Brooklyn 4.
Man, brother, I see it. I want it. I don't know. Because, like, it's such a beautiful vision. It really is. It's like when you're looking up at Paradise and the gates have opened and everybody's kind of like moving their hand, like motioning for you to come in, and you're right there, and then the gate closes in your face. Like, oh, God, it's so beautiful. I want it. But before I give my prediction, first of all, so yeah, you're going Dream then because you think he's going to challenge Aleister Black and take over.
Well, yeah, and also, I also do want to say, and by the way, don't spoil the prediction for the world title match, but I also do want to say, continuing from the ladder match where Ricochet talked about how he wants to show the world how good he is, and again, like not talking about wanting to win, but talking about just showing off, that really has continued throughout this whole thing. Like Dream has kind of joined him in saying like anything you can do, I can do better. And I love that. But Ricochet has really spent this entire build focused on proving how entertaining he is rather than proving that he can beat Velveteen Dream. So I think because of the consistent use of I'm going to show off and I'm going to, make everyone wow at my moves rather than I'm going to win the match, I'm continuing to pick Ricochet to lose until he decides that he actually cares more about winning than showing off.
Yeah, I really like the sound of that. Let me just keep my comments solely to the match because the whole picture is going to come together by the end of this preview and predictions. Anyway, build has been incredible. Dream consistently, and I said this, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago on our NXT review, the man consistently has the best feuds in NXT. And I love the relationships that he has with people that he feuds with. This one with Ricochet goes far beyond like, oh, you're an indie guy and I'm, Dream or any of that crap. Like, he really does seem on some level to be in awe of Ricochet, maybe even attracted to Ricochet. And Ricochet, he respects Dream, and I think he respects what he's done, but like he's also here to stake his own claim. So it's a very, I don't want to say basic feud, but it's a feud without a championship that I think is really more enthralling than any championship match on this card. Which shows,
AKA the Velveteen Dream experience.
Exactly. Which shows that a championship doesn't make everything. The segment where Ricochet just dives out of the ring, lands on his feet, and gets up in Dream's face and says, "Show me," and Dream's face, which has just been memed everywhere at this point. That was fantastic. So yeah, great build, amazing build. And I think the match will follow suit. Like, I think you're going to see a lot of great stuff from both guys. That said, who do I think is going to win? This was one of the bigger internal struggles for me on this card. And I'm going to say, unfortunately, that I think Ricochet is going to win. I think Velveteen needs this win more than Ricochet. I think he deserves this win more than Ricochet for the work he's put in. But I think Ricochet, in the eyes of NXT, is the better act, is the more important act right now. So I'm going to say Ricochet wins this match. Plus, I have a totally different vision for a lot of the upper card stuff going on at Brooklyn 4, which we'll get into in moments here. But yeah, I do see Ricochet getting the win.
All right, that's fair. I'm not going to even try and convince you otherwise because if I would succeed and you would switch, we would end up being wrong together, and I want one of us to be right. So I'm just going to...
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I'm just going to move on, and fourth match is going to be the Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa street fight. The Chicago street fight. Can't forget we're in Chicago, as if, the title of the show doesn't show it to us enough. We've got to remind ourselves because of the name of this match. Dude, I think I've been going first a little too often, but I really do want to go first on this one because I feel like knowing that this is a bridge pay-per-view, knowing that this is meant to be basically a B show as far as takeovers are concerned, and knowing that Gargano won the unsanctioned match, I think the safest pick on this card is picking Tommaso Ciampa to win this match.
I mean, we could just end it right here because I completely agree with you. I will say, since you have been going first a lot, I guess I'll speak at length just a bit more if you don't mind.
Go for it.
As far as your comments about it not going on last, the only argument I could see being made about it going on last would be, well, it was TakeOver Chicago where Ciampa's initial turn took place, and it's a full circle kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. But immediate counter argument is Ciampa needs to win this to me. And if he does win, he's such a fucking scumbag that unless NXT has a different view for their television, which I'm not saying they shouldn't have. I'm not even trying to say that. But I think NXT is pretty traditional in that you don't send the crowd home unhappy. So I do think Ciampa is going to win. Probably going to get a chorus of freaking boos for it. Gotta be honest, I thought the match at the last TakeOver, the unsanctioned match, was a bit overrated by some. Didn't really care for it too much. I mean, obviously, Gargano's always going to be a sympathetic babyface and make everybody look like $1 million. Ciampa's an amazing heel. I will say the best parts of it, just like I'd say the best parts of this feud, have been the more like narratively inspired elements. Like, for example, you know, when Ciampa is just going for the knee bracer, trying to use the crutch, which he's used so many times on Gargano. Or when he's just sitting there with like his eye all swelled up, Gargano's ready to take his revenge, and they sit by each other. So it's not so much like the moves and stuff and, oh, what sequences can these guys do? It's the more emotionally rich stuff that I gravitate towards. I don't know if we're going to get any of that here. I don't know if Candace is going to get involved. You know, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do think Ciampa's going to get the win. And yeah, I think it should be a good match. I think it's definitely one of the better feuds, like on a writing side, that we have seen in some time in WWE, and I commend both guys for playing their parts to a T. But from the in-ring side, I think it'll be good, but I'm looking for those really emotionally heavy moments to really make it a great match. So that's just kind of my overall thoughts on this whole thing.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people are making a fuss out of this basically not being sort of an elevation from the unsanctioned match, because really an unsanctioned match and a street fight really do feel like the same stipulation. I've made the argument that I really do feel like the best option for them to make this match feel like they're really escalating it is to make it a Falls Count Anywhere Chicago street fight, or maybe even just specify in the rules when they're describing, oh, what's a Chicago street fight? Falls Count Anywhere. That just adding that little extra bit, allowing them to be able to pin each other anywhere and maybe be able to take it into the parking lot, maybe even into the street, the literal streets of Chicago. That could make this match a fucking classic. But as it stands right now, without that little extra stipulation, I do not think that this match is going to sort of beat out their first match from TakeOver New Orleans as far as quality goes.
I mean, I agree with your sentiments, by the way, with like how you would do it, because I mean, you're talking about a feud where they even had YouTube videos where like Gargano was stalking Ciampa when he didn't have a job at the NXT parking lot, went to Tommaso's house, was banging on the door at, 2 o'clock in the morning. So like this hatred is transcendent. I don't care what arena you try and contain it in. It's not going to do it. Yeah. So to me, it would make a lot of sense if it's spilling out in the streets. WWE's orchestrated stuff like that before. Can't tell me that they couldn't do it again for a match like this. Like, be inspired. I think if they did that, it could even surpass their New Orleans match, which again, I've already said it, for me, has already been a tad overrated by some. But yeah, I don't really think it's going to live up to New Orleans. We'll wait and see. But yeah, we do both agree that Ciampa's getting the win, which I guess only leaves one match, which if you're cool with me going first, I will go first on this one.
You can go first for our main event, but for right now, I also wanted to add a little question for us to both answer. Given that you and I both agree that Ciampa is winning this one, what do you think their third and hopefully final match is going to be, their rubber match at TakeOver Brooklyn 4?
Well, here's the thing. I don't think the rubber match is going to happen at TakeOver Brooklyn 4.
When do you think the rubber match is going to happen, or do you not?
I do think it's going to happen. I could see it happening at the next TakeOver before WrestleMania, because I don't see these guys getting called up like that soon. I think there are two takeovers in between Brooklyn 4 and WrestleMania.
Going to be a takeover on the weekend of Survivor Series, and then another takeover on the weekend of the Royal Rumble.
That's true. I still see it being, though, on the takeover the weekend of WrestleMania, though, that the rubber match happens, because I think they want to drag this shit out. Plus, they want to give them some space, which is why I did want to get into our main event conversation, because, again, I don't think
okay, well, before we do then, let me just say, I think that it is going to be a loser leaves NXT I Quit match, and Gargano will win.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So
now we can move on. Go ahead.
Yeah, main event, Aleister Black versus Lars Sullivan. Now this is where it really comes full circle for me, is I have enjoyed the build for this match. I think NXT's done an amazing job protecting Lars and making him look like a legitimate threat to Aleister Black and his NXT championship reign. Black, it's funny because he's not like an Undertaker gimmick with the whole zombie thing. You can't really worry about him being humanized because he was always human. He's just a very badass human, which I think is a nice line to walk, because these vulnerabilities, I don't think you could really scoff at them and be like, oh, that's so out of character. But the character was never supernatural or anything like that. So I think they're towing a fine line here. Black struggling is nice. I mean, he's the babyface champion. That's what he should do. And again, I think the template is going to be very similar to the rivalry that Chris Benoit and Kane had in the summer of 2004 when Benoit was world champion. Oh, you can't get me in the crossface. You can't get me to tap out. And then, ultimately he does. He didn't do it in their first encounter. He did it in their second encounter. I think with Black, it's going to be you can't hit the Black Mass. And, maybe it could even be like, oh, the Black Mass is the only thing that could beat Lars, because we even saw in that handicap match against Dream and Ricochet how much punishment this dude can absorb. So I would even like it if Aleister tries everything else, maybe even some submissions, and like Lars just won't stay down. He just needs that swift kick to the head. And, they build and build, and then finally the crescendo, Black finally hits the kick. So I think that's the template they're probably going to go with. It's a solid one to use. I think it's going to carry him to a worthwhile NXT championship match. I will say this is a bit colored by bias, but I don't think it's going to match up to anything Andrade did with his brief time with the championship. But I do think it'll be a good start for however they want Aleister Black's reign to be. So I do see Aleister Black retaining. And now that I've kind of come out with that, and we're talking about the NXT championship, I will say that Brooklyn 4, even though I much prefer your vision of Velveteen Dream going after Black, and it may happen, but I feel like Tommaso Ciampa is going to be the number one contender. He's going to go after Black, and Gargano, on the other hand, is going to go after EC3. So that's going to be their Brooklyn 4 matches. Gargano versus EC3, Ciampa versus Black for the NXT championship. That's kind of rounding out my Brooklyn card for the moment.
So do you think that EC3 is going to get involved in the Ciampa Gargano match this coming Saturday?
I will say no, and I would really prefer if he didn't, because I would like Ciampa to beat Gargano through some other dirty means that he himself exercises. I think it's going to be
because of the rules of the match.
Exactly. I would say that it's going to be something more along the lines of maybe 2 weeks removed from the match, or 3. Gargano comes out to address the crowd, and EC3's music hits, and he says something along the lines of, well, Johnny, since you felt the need to interrupt my time in the ring, I thought I'd take the liberty to interrupt yours, or something to that effect.
And that just kind of kicks it off. Yeah.
That just kind of kicks everything off. Yeah. So I definitely see it being more of an NXT thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I can definitely see that, because they really did kind of plant it a little bit. I think that the blow off to that segment could just be argued to Ciampa being able to use that against him, then to say, oh, it's always all about Johnny. So I don't necessarily think it has to come back to EC3, but the EC3 character would definitely make sense if he would be like taken, if he would take offense to that. So
right.
Yes, your idea here definitely makes a lot of sense, and I could definitely see them going in that route. I think that I'm more fantasy booking based on what I want more than what I think is going to happen, because my sort of ideal Brooklyn card would be Shayna defending against Dakota Kai, or maybe even Dakota Kai and Kyrie in a triple threat. Aleister, who I am picking to retain here against Lars, versus Velveteen Dream. Gargano Ciampa in a loser leaves NXT I Quit match. either Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch or the Undisputed Era getting basically squashed by War Raiders, and then maybe like Ricochet versus EC3 or something along those lines.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm going. Is I'm more thinking of like what my ideal card would look like rather than thinking about what NXT is most likely to do. I think from a realistic standpoint, your idea of Brooklyn 4 looks a lot more like what the real one is probably going to look like. So props to you on that.
I mean, brother, I'm pulling for you, and I think we've seen at times on takeovers, like just to use an example, I know it's a weird example, but like when the realist guys, Enzo and Cass, when they were still a team and they were feuding with the Revival, they lost to Takeover London, and I think it was by Cheney means too, or maybe they did beat them clean, the Revival, but it just, you know, the rivalry was so personal. We thought that they were going to go back to Brooklyn, or no, it wasn't against them, it was against Blurfexa. That's right. And, you know, they retained. I think that was by cheating because they were really heelish like that. And we thought, oh, then they're just going to get another rematch of Brooklyn. Vaudevillains ended up becoming contenders, you know, and getting another shot, like out of nowhere.
Wasn't that because Enzo was injured, or maybe even Cass might have been injured? I think it was Cass that was injured because that was when the Revival did the thing to his knee.
Yeah, I don't think I think that was before the Cass injury, though. Like I think that all happened like after. But I guess my point just being, we can never really assume contenders just because we think something's on a particular trajectory. So, and I'm only saying that to give myself hope that your vision of Velveteen Dream, Black 2 for TakeOver, you know, Brooklyn 4 happens, because my God, like if you really want Aleister's reign to at least have one memorable defense, leave it to Velveteen Dream. He will get the fucking job done. But yeah, more pessimistically, I am thinking it's going to be Ciampa Black, and I love Ciampa to death. But to be quite honest, for whatever reason, that's not really a match I want to see right now. Nor do I really want to see Gargano EC3. I think Gargano is actually significantly above that. But we'll see if I'm right or you are. But yeah, this takeover, while it's a bridge to Brooklyn 4, hopefully it's a fun one to cross. That's really all I can say about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Well, El, we've already gone over all 5 matches. I think I've already kind of given my ideal Brooklyn 4 card. You've kind of given a nice little sneak peek of what you think's going to happen. Do we have anything else that we wanted to talk about? Because really, I feel like we had a lot to say coming into this, but I guess it just doesn't feel like we've already been live for nearly 40 minutes, which we have. It's just crazy that it's going by that fast.
Yeah, absolutely. I really got nothing else to say. I'm already thinking about Brooklyn 4. I mean, it's such a huge takeover.
That's what we're supposed to be thinking about, because like we've been talking about, this feels more like, this is like a B show. This is like, it's like a semi-main event. It's like a cool down match. You know, it's like they're trying to kind of make us relax a little bit, lower our expectations so they can boom, pop us right in the back of the head with the freaking haymaker when it comes to Brooklyn 4.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Again, I do think Lars will deliver in his first big championship match. I'll be curious how, Aleister does in his first defense. Gargano Ciampa, I agree. I think it was Mark Schoeneman said in chat, like, I'm still loving the feud, but I'm not nearly as hyped for it this time. I can understand that. I feel like the narrative stuff has been really good, but I already gave my thoughts on that. Dream and Ricochet, and especially Dream, because I love Ricochet, but I just feel like Velveteen Dream is more complete than Ricochet at the end of the day. And to be quite honest, I think Velveteen Dream is more complete than most of his peers in the Performance Center. Yeah. He is just a gem. He should be in the world title hunt. I don't know if he will be. I think it's only a smart investment to put him there, but I digress. Tag title match, you definitely have me questioning myself on that, because you never know how NXT would want to utilize their television. Women's Championship. Oh, yeah. Speaking of, I will formally lock in for the Women's Championship. Again, I do think Kairi's going to get back in the hunt now that she won this little mini feud with Lacey Evans. I think she's going to redirect her focus. All the while, Bianca Belair, I think, is slowly rising. So I could really see that all kind of culminating for the takeover after the fact. I think the women's division, they're actually doing more long-term planning than I may even be giving them credit for. But yeah, everything looks solid. We'll see how the show is. I'd say my hype is still about the same, 7.5 out of 10. And can't wait to see all you guys Saturday so that we can freak the fuck out over it.
You know, though, that's the beautiful thing about NXT. The takeovers are always so consistently good that even one that we are openly admitting and speculating was designed to be a little bit on the tamer side, we're still like, this is worst case scenario, probably the least excited that we've been for a takeover ever, and still 7.5 out of 10. Like, that's higher than most big time WWE pay-per-views for us.
Oh, yeah. And again, I think it's because of the goodwill they've earned from the fan base by being so consistently quality when they needed to be.
And really, I think that comes more from the talent than the writing, because the talent, I mean, the goodwill that NXT will always give us is that they give their talent time to work really compelling matches. And just the fact that we're going to be getting these 5 matches with the talent involved, we just know that there are going to be probably 1 to 3 jaw-droppingly amazing matches on this show, even if the build to the matches hasn't necessarily been as exceptional as we've gotten used to.
Right. I completely agree, man. So I'll be curious to see what they deliver this Saturday.
All right, man. Well, I suppose we can close it out here. This has been a rather succinct, if not fun, preview and predictions. We will be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. with our Money in the Bank preview and predictions. That's probably going to be a lot more interesting because we're going to disagree a lot more. And the matches that we disagree on, we're probably going to fight over. Whereas on this, the only matches that we really disagreed on were ones where I kind of conceded that I was going out on a limb. And I also didn't really want to argue with you about the other one because of the whole when we agree, we are wrong when I make you switch sides kind of thing factor.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't expect that kind of stuff to stick around for tomorrow because Money in the Bank is, well, to quote your boy Littlefinger, chaos is a ladder, and Money in the Bank is all about ladders, and this show is all about chaos because this is one of the most volatile, up in the air WWE pay-per-views that I can remember. This is like, there are so many different answers that we could have, and I don't necessarily know if any of them are going to be proven wrong until the day of. So it's just a crazy pay-per-view, guys. Remember to tune into that on, well, Friday. That's tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. It's EDT, not EST now, because we are in daylight savings time. So it would be 1 a.m. if you're in the UK, 2 a.m. if you're in France. It's 4-hour difference instead of 5 for the UK now, and then it's 5 instead of 6 for France. I don't really know any other time zones outside of the US, so it would be 8 if you're in Central, 7 in Mountain, and then 6 in Pacific. So, guys, it's going to be interesting. I think tomorrow, honestly, I think our preview predictions might just be more entertaining than the show itself, but we'll see about that. And that also gives you a little bit of a hint as how much I'm looking forward to that show. But TakeOver should be a lot of fun, and that's what we're here for. So we will see you guys on tomorrow. Actually, we'll see you guys tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Remember to check out the description, like the video if you have not already, subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon for notifications, and when this video gets fully uploaded and processed, leave a comment letting us know what you're predicting will happen on this show. I'm always curious to see what our fans think is going to happen on these shows that we predict. And of course, follow us both on Twitter, like our Facebook, and then if you would like to support us, you've got 3 options. You can buy merch on our Teespring store. That's available, links in the description. You can donate to our Patreon. Only $3 a month will get you access to the exclusive Twitwell Patron Discord channel and accumulate over time, allowing you to request live reactions to shows of your choosing, wrestling shows of your choosing. And it will all kind of group together in a community pot and allow us to continue live reacting to progress every week of every month. And the third and final and free option to support us is to just share this video and this channel with all of your wrestling fan friends and let them in on the best kept secret in the YouTube wrestling community. We are the workhorses of the YWC. We are grinding our asses off to prove it. And we will see you guys tomorrow night for our Money in the Bank preview predictions, and then Saturday night for TakeOver, and then Sunday night for Money in the Bank. We haven't decided if we're going to be live reacting to the post Money in the Bank Raw and SmackDown yet, but that is a possibility. If we get enough requests for it, we'll probably end up just kind of giving in and pulling the trigger. But regardless of that, we will be back with progress on Tuesday. So Lots of stuff lined up for the next week. And then, of course, Lucha Underground Season 4, Episode 2 on Wednesday. Season 4, Episode 1 was wonderful last night. And we will see you guys tomorrow night. Or if you're only here for NXT, we'll see you Saturday night. But no matter what you're here for, most important thing that you do is stay tuned.